So I want us to give a lot of applause for Robert as he comes on stage. Robert, the stage is all yours.
Michael, thank you so much. And a slight correction, I'm actually in Connecticut near New York City right now visiting family. So this is my childhood home. So I'm pleased to be able to share with you from that. A big thank you to Michael. I met Michael back at a conference in April, had a great discussion with him, and I'm very pleased and thrilled to be able to work with you all. And thank you again, Michael, for letting me work with your community. Oh, and I can see you all now. Hi. Awesome. I really wish I could be there in person. I love travel. Maybe one day I'll get out there and see you all. As Michael mentioned, I will be talking about Jira Align. I will have some slides to talk about concepts and ideas, and then I will go into a demo box of Align and show us. Now, this demo box has all made up data, so we'll be able to see things in there, but it doesn't relate to like a project I've worked on or anything. It will just give us an idea of what the system can do. All right. So introduction, my name is Rob, as Michael mentioned. I've worked in IT, at mainly HR systems, so human resources or people teams, for about 20 years now. I started in university as the help desk worker. Since then, I have been an agile project manager, a systems manager. Right now, I do consulting and training. And my path in learning has always been by doing. I was just told, go set up that printer, go figure out this system. And that was my experience with Atlassian products. Someone just pointed at a screen and said, that is Jira. And that was my training. That works for me. I enjoy learning like that. But many people just want to do their job. They want to plan programs. They want to write code. They want to solve problems. They don't want to, struggle to learn a tool. And that's why I do what I do. That's why I enjoy training. That's why I enjoy attending events like this to help others avoid that frustration. Since that day in 2013, I've done a lot of work with Atlassian. As Michael mentioned, I'm a community champion, um, and I hold multiple various certifications on their products. So our quick agenda, we'll talk what is Jira Align. So just a high level, here's what it can do for us as a team, but also talk about use cases and basic features. Again, the goal today is not to make us all experts in Jira Align. It's to ensure we all have an understanding of what it can do for our teams, and then allow us to go investigate further or determine if maybe another tool is better. So I can't get to everything it does, but I'll make sure that we all walk away from this understanding enough to go learn more and be confident in that basic knowledge. We will then also be going into Jira Align and seeing it from different perspectives. So I'll start out at the top as a C-suite, as someone who's looking at the overall strategy. And then we'll go down to a program manager or maybe a project manager. And we'll see how this tool gives us different aspects of our work across our organization. So starting at the beginning, what even is Jira Align? It is an enterprise agile planning tool. And it allows our organizations to connect our strategy to our execution, how we do it. When we think of tools, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, we have people who are doing all the work. Our developers are writing the code, our scrum masters are leading teams. And then we have the people at the top usually who are determining, where do we go? What is the vision of the organization? And if there's a disconnect between those layers, you can have people building great things that don't support where the company wants to go, and vice versa. And that disconnect can cause a lot of friction. Jira Align is a tool that helps organizations make that connection. So every layer of the organization is moving towards the same direction, and everyone can see what's going on, appropriately. Now, it's mainly for Agile at scale. So if you've used the safe or less methodologies, it's intended to more closely align, and I hate to use that term to describe Jira Align, to align with these Agile methodologies. And we'll talk more about the importance of understanding these conceptual frameworks. But for organizations that have experience with these or are looking to adopt them, Jira Align can be a good fit because the tool is intended to help organizations express and support that methodology. Now, Jira Align is an enterprise scale tool. Folks I've spoken to have suggested that larger organizations, so over 500 developers or people working on the work, is a good size to consider using this. It is also beneficial for organizations to have already implemented scaled agile. Anytime we consider a new tool and a new methodology, we're introducing a lot of change. And so the thinking here is an organization should first implement the concept of safe or less or scaled agile, and then find the tool that supports it. Because in these cases, that concept is more important. It's more important for everyone in the organization to understand how they fit into the framework before we start trying to implement and use a specific tool that supports it. So typically groups that would use this would be a bit bigger, over 500 developers, and already have some experience using the scaled agile. Now, this diagram is going to help us understand where does Jira Align fall in our tech stack, but also in our how we manage our projects and work. The bottom two layers are the Jira work items, so the individual tasks I might accomplish, and Jira epics and projects. And these can be contained within Jira. They're smaller pieces of work. They might represent, a few months of work, but they're not the overarching vision for the company necessarily. They are also more tactical. Every day, my team is going in and moving work items. Every week, my project managers are adjusting their epics. And that's very good because they need that very granular, very targeted information. However, my C-suite, my portfolio managers, my program managers need a higher vision, and that's where Align comes in. So when I think of Jira Align, I'm thinking of programs, so big collections of projects, portfolios, initiatives. Different groups call them different things. And in Jira Align, you can change the terminology for these layers. You will hear me call portfolio kind of the top and then program the layer under that. But just keep in mind, whatever we call them, they are bigger, longer time scale, and more concerned with the general direction of the organization and not the tactical work. It's the strategy. Now, this line in the middle can also get blurry. It is possible to use Jira to support larger things, and there are marketplace apps and other ways you can do it. So this isn't to say we can't do a program in Jira or we can't do an epic in Align, just that this is a good way to think of the split of which program does what. So then we can kind of map these layers to roles in our organization. And again, at the top, we would have our executives. My chief information officer might describe the strategy of our IT department. My portfolio managers handle those programs, and then project managers and developers. This isn't to say these individuals can't, move between layers, but when I think of a stereotypical role or a type of individual who works at these levels, this tends to be who they are. Jira Align is also one of the only Atlassian apps you cannot just go get yourself. You have to go through Atlassian. And I believe it does include training and setup. So Atlassian wants to ensure you are successful. This tool requires some more thought and again, that understanding of scaled agile concepts. So Atlassian is doing its best to set up groups for success. It is included in the strategy collection, which also has focus and talent apps. So if you're looking for more information, the strategy collection would be where to look. This symbol means we're going to go into Jira Align. So what we're seeing here is, I'll go to the home screen and just start at the beginning. When you first log into Jira Align, once my screen loads, it's going to give you essentially a dashboard showing you where you've been. And the dramatic timing is very bad for me today. Here we go. The user interface or UI is very similar to other Atlassian tools. Along the top, we'll have some navigation options that I'll talk to you in a moment. And then in the top right, we have some other icons. We have a global search within Jira Align so we can look up work or other objects within the system. I have notifications. Checklists is an interesting one that I haven't seen in other Atlassian products, but groups can develop a checklist to support a process. So for example, I have a safe process checklist. that if I open up, it's going to give me specific steps I should follow when I'm setting up something in Safe. These are customizable. They're intended to be a tool for whoever's using this to double check their work. Personally, I find checklists very helpful. They are another aspect of the system that we want to think through and ensure that the people using them find them beneficial, and we're not just putting them in here to say we have them. But this is a neat feature because it lets us put that information directly in the system. There is also contextual help, and I'm seeing this in more Atlassian products, but this will bring up a help panel for whatever screen you're on. I use these all the time, just as to remember. I also discover new things. So I always encourage folks open up that little help icon just to see what's going on. Now, from here, to me, this blank screen can be kind of, I was going to say useless, but boring. Up in the top left, I have a Teams dropdown, and we're going to start out at that top level, the strategy. So this is the highest level of planning we have. And you'll notice that these are broken down and they're layered. We'll dig down into these layers as we go. But right now, I'll just open up the strategy tab. And what this is giving me is the mission, vision, and values, the highest level things that the company has. So I would be, in this case, an executive, that chief information officer, looking at this, trying to understand, how does everything ladder up to our mission? Why does the group exist? What is our purpose? And here I can see visually, we have one mission, one vision, 4 values, and then we get a split between I was going to say strategery, excuse me, between the strategy and then what we're actually building to support it. So this is the planning pyramid or strategy pyramid, because we have to give it a name. But this lets me visually see, how does everything stack up to help us get to our mission? Or how does everything relate to our values? Again, developers may not find this useful, but executives, people doing long-term planning, will use this to just see, are we on track? And then on the right, we can get some progress snapshots of how things are going. How many features are there? How many have been accepted as part of our work versus how many are pending? So this top level really gives the executive persona or role a lot of great information. Now, Jira Align integrates with Jira, and it's bi-directional. So my Jira instance, and I can have multiple copies of Jira, multiple instances connected to Align, will be feeding it work. And so as my team updates their sprint in Jira or updates their work items, it gets fed right into Align. And I can also make work in Align and it gets pushed back to Jira. There are other things we can store in Align though. Here we're seeing OKRs, objectives and key results. This is just a breakdown, a heat map of how they're doing. And then under that, I have the OKR tree, so a breakdown of all the objectives and key results we have. Now, personally, I have not worked at many places that have done OKRs very well. There tends to be a breakdown somewhere in the middle. But for groups that are leveraging this type of tool, Jira Align will show them to you, and they can also tie them directly into the work that's being completed. So again, it gives us one spot to go to see, where do we want to go? And then how are we doing on our path to get there? And where might we need to step in and help out? For example, this strategic goal is only 0.1% done. I need to go help, or has a 0.1 score. So this is the kind of the dashboard. We can dig in though. There is a strategic backlog. So in the same way we have a backlog for our sprint or our agile teams, we'll also have backlogs at the strategic level. And so this depends again on what we need to do, but we can take snapshots of how things are going. And I completely skipped planning intervals. And we can see what's in that backlog that we might need to pull in or promote for work. Now, Jira Align has this concept of planning interval. You might hear me say PI. It's similar to an iteration in Scrum, where it's some period of time. In this case, they're about 3 months. But this allows me to compare my plan, to see how I'm doing, and to kind of filter what I'm seeing in the system based on those intervals. And these would align with whatever my organization has decided that those intervals will be. So in this case, I can see my backlog, excuse me, across all programs, and I can expand it and see what work is part of that interval. Now, this is giving me the top level down. I have colored icons on the right to see which intervals these items appear in. And then I can keep drilling in to see what work comprises this epic. And I'll see if I have any in this demo box that has a feature assigned to it. But you can drill in, and then as you're curious, see how the smaller pieces, again, all fit together. Or if there are gaps, you can identify those and work with your team to start to solve them. One last area I'll talk about here are roadmaps. And this will look similar to a Gantt chart, if you're familiar with those, a visual planning against a calendar of where does all of our work fall. So this is just showing me visually each of these items, but what time are we expecting to complete them? It's giving me both the planning intervals at the top and then also any sprints that my team happens to have. So if I need that information, it's right on the screen for me. And within each of these, you'll see there's like a flag and little star icons. We can have milestones relating to these items. So again, thinking of that higher level person, they're interested in general progress. I can insert milestones so they can see, okay, we're coming up on this big beta release. Are we tracking towards it? So a great visual way for someone to see what's going on. Again, there's a ton more in here. I'm going to switch back and we're going to keep drilling down our layers and talk about next with the program or portfolio, depending on how you define it. So this was that strategy room we spoke about, and it's really focused on how do your team's work align with goals. So concerned with that top level down, understanding, is the team going in the right direction? And again, it pulls in things that can be outside of Jira, those OKRs. You can have goals in here as well, depending on what you're using. This is that strategy pyramid, again, a visual way of laddering things up. And just an easier way to understand. And I find this helpful because it's hard for me mentally sometimes to see how does the work of this team support that vision, that idea, that direction we've decided. This lets me see more easily how it all connects. We'll dig more into objectives and key results. We briefly spoke that they exist, but we can go in and build out more information around them. We can connect them to specific pieces of work. So we can say this epic will help support this objective, or even this epic is part of a key result. And we can, of course, go in and adjust them as we go. So like any aspect of planning, a tool like Jira Align is not going to be something we set up once and walk away from. It's going to be a living tool, a living artifact to help us manage our teams, and something we should be regularly going into to update, to change, to modify as we need to. And then from the other end, we can go into work like our Jira epics, our Jira features, and tie them back to those key results. So this allows our teams to just focus on what they need to do, while our planning team can figure out how does that work connect to specific objectives we've been given or specific results that we're looking to get. This for me is very helpful. Some of the failures I have seen with groups using OKRs, objectives and key results, has just been getting buy-in from the teams to go use them. And here, if we can take that and give it to a planner or someone else who's seeing the broader vision, we can let the teams focus on their work and just let them know, hey, here's how it connects. All you have to do is do your work in Jira, write your code, do what you do best. We'll handle connecting it to things and we'll adjust the plan. So you can then let the team know, hey, focus on different work to align to these objectives. That visual roadmap again, we can have it display objectives as well, which I mentioned as the flag that shows up on the line, but a visual way for folks to see what's coming up and where might we need to focus on what's going on. In my work, I am typically the project manager, and it can be very hard to convince someone to go look into Jira or something. So a visual like this, any kind of roadmap, any kind of Gantt chart to me has been very useful in telling a story around the work. And this is all just created automatically. And as we'll see in a moment, we can drill into each of these items. And if there are features under it or smaller pieces of work, see how they're doing as well. So it makes it very easy to explore and drill in to see what's going on with any particular work item or any particular feature or any particular initiative, whatever level we're on. Here we are again in that roadmap. And we can just click these little drop downs. Items that have it will have some sub items. So in this case, I can see that 825 is comprised of 2 other items. And then to open these up, I can just click on them. And it's going to give me this side panel. We're seeing this more in Atlassian tools. Instead of a new tab, it just opens up right on the side. What I'm looking at here is a feature that could have been pulled in from Jira. So again, there's this bi-directional sync that makes sure when I'm focused on the strategy level, I don't have to go open up Jira to make a change. I just make it in Jira Align, and the integration will go push an update, and vice versa the other way around as well. From here, I can view things like the descriptions. I can indicate the type of work, and most of the dropdowns you see, and even most of the terms you see on the screen are configurable. So part of setting up Jira Align will be determining what do we call different types of item in the system. So the terms you see here are just the out-of-the-box defaults. But I can just come in here and edit this as I need to, changing things like priority. But I can also see where it's contained. So what is its upline? What is the bigger thing that it connects up to? So I can see this one item theme ranking is underneath an epic, and then underneath this, I think they're calling them initiatives in here, a theme, excuse me, to operationalize AI. And this gives me a lot of context right on the screen. Other options in here, I can change the Jira project it's connected to, do things like subscribe to updates or favorite these items. Always recommend folks hit these little star icons when you see them just to keep up to date. And then at the bottom, we can drill in even more. So for me, it does a fairly good job of presenting me useful information at this level, while also allowing me to dig in to understand what are the specific stories, the smaller pieces of work that tie up to this. It doesn't flood my screen with this information, but it's there in case I want to get more information on it. We'll dig more into one of these as we go down our stack into the project manager. Now the backlog, we'll see the same types of menus as we drill down. So that was our high level strategic layer. Now we're going to go down one level to more what a program or portfolio manager would have, someone who's responsible for multiple projects. We'll see the same menu backlog, but it will be only showing things in the portfolio I'm looking at. So as we think of going down this funnel or focusing in where we're going, we'll also be limiting what we see, so focusing our attention. And this backlog allows us to prioritize. So it's similar to a backlog in Jira, if you've seen that, where you can just kind of click and drag and say, this item is the highest priority, then this one, then this one, then this one. And we can come in and adjust that priority at any time. So as new work is added, or as things change, I can just go in and change the priority in the backlog for my teams. Now, there are levels in the backlog. Now, and again, what we're seeing here is from just out of the default box, you can change these levels, but you can see these layers. So we can have a theme, the biggest layer in this. And then there's epic, capability, feature, story, etc. And depending on who I am, I'll be more interested in one of these than the other. The typical guidance, the epic level and under is best left in Jira or best managed in Jira, because that allows you to focus on smaller areas. And then everything above that, your themes, your initiatives are better in Align. Again, it's which tool is most appropriate for the work. So I would tend to let my development teams focus on their work in Jira in the Jira backlog and use the Jira Align backlog for the bigger things that span quarters or span years of planning. Now, I've spoken about these epics quite a bit. These are just a container for a bigger piece of work. Some teams use them to represent an entire projects of work, depending on how it's set up, but they can contain a lot of information in Jira Align. They'll pull in information, of course, from Jira itself, but you'll also get additional things about it from Align. Again, where it is in the hierarchy, so what themes are above it, but also what data is below it, what stories comprise it. Typically, though, I don't see most folks drilling into the story level in Align unless there's very specific questions. These tend to be used more for general tracking and planning. So you can see who's working on it. You can also see its sizing. In this example, this group used a t-shirt size, so a large epic. How you estimate in a line is configurable. So if you use story points or some other metric, you can use that in here. And it does have, I forget off the top of my head, a calculation to help standardize size estimations across your Jira Align platform. But this gives you all of that view inside Align, so you can see where it falls in work. Here we are again in Align, and I'm just going to open up this Teams menu. And at first I clicked on strategy, but now I can see there's a portfolio level. Again, I can bookmark these, which I'm going to want to do to keep an eye on them. But if I click on this portfolio level, I'm going to see a similar menu, but you'll notice on the left, there's a lot more things in here now. It drops me into what they call the portfolio room. You can think of this like a landing page. There is a room under strategy, and there'll be one under projects. But this room is a collection of information around this level. So what I'm seeing here relates to the portfolio that I selected. I can see that I've got my little release roadmap at the top, and then all the work that comprises that portfolio. It's also showing me on the right, in this planning interval, how are we trending? It's about 58% complete, and I can see the components of this portfolio, where they are percentage-wise. So this instantly shows me, based on story points in this case, that the web group might need some help. They're a little bit behind, whereas my AI group is a little bit ahead of where they should be according to just even work across that planning interval, that PI. I'll just open up this epics tab. And this is where we can see it's just that one part of the room with a bit more information, but I can get information about each epic we're working on. So as that portfolio manager, I can dig in and see things like the status, the owner, and also one thing that I really like is AC is the acceptance criteria. So this is one part of any kind of work when I work with teams that drives me crazy. We don't think through what is considered done or what's the acceptance criteria. How do we know we've completed it? Jira Align allows us to tie that right to the epic. So I can see in one click whatever we think that criteria is. In this case, the training runs smoothly. Okay, great. I can dig into these, and this will look similar to the other panel where it's going to show me information about the epic. It does also support, or it does have a spend tab. From what I understand, Atlassian includes this as general guidance. This tab is not intended to replace a financial tracking tool, but it's intended to give us just a good idea of how we're doing based against a budget. So keep in mind this feature exists. This, last I heard, is not intended to replace a financial analysis tool, financial planning tool that you might otherwise use, but it does give us one more way to keep an eye on how are we trending towards our budget. Groups I've worked with in the past mostly just focus on things like story points. They're not tracking the dollars associated to a task, but this feature is available for groups that need to use it. Other things we have on the epic level, the detail tab will look similar to the Jira ticket. So it pulled in the description, it pulled in the name. Down at the bottom, we can see which PIs it's been included in. And these might be sprints, but we can have different estimates by sprint. So we could say, hey, for QI 5 for this interval, it's a medium, but then it's going to expand due to some scope shift. So we have more granular control in Align to define work based on the interval it's in. We're not stuck with just, oh, it's large, medium, small. We can see over time or over interval how it's going to shift. There are other tabs we can track. For example, if your team uses prototyping or designs, you can store them on the epic. So depending on the design stage, again, this is all a custom field that's been set up. But you can track more in here more easily than what we see over with Jira in many cases. There's intake forms to make sure you can justify what's going on or which group, again, configurable based on your team's needs. So when you see work come in, what other information around it do you need to collect? It can track specific benefits. So as your team is thinking through what work should we do, they can have the opportunity to build a case for this particular work. What will the organization get from it? and what other information is available. Again, this puts it all in one spot. So my team doesn't have to go into a Google Drive, over into SharePoint, into Confluence, into a Jira ticket. It's all just in Jira Align. So I can see if this epic isn't accepted yet. Maybe it's in a not started progress. I have a process to review it and understand why does Michael want to perform this work. I can also track the value. Again, the dollars we see in here are not intended to replace other tracking tools we have, but we can size the general value, what profit we could get from this. And what you'll see is a score being generated. It's using this score to try and figure out, should we do this or not? Is it based on what we understand? Is this worthwhile? Again, configurable metrics and weighting here, but just demonstrating that Align gives us some other ways to analyze work that we don't get in a tool like Jira, or at least don't get easily. Milestone planning is also available in here. All right, and there's our epic level. Just like if we go up one more to the higher level, we have a backlog just within the portfolio. And I'll try and get these pop-ups to stop. But here I can see the backlog just for digital services. And again, just like Jira, I can click and drag to rearrange these as I need to. And this is just a visual indication of which one we think is the highest priority, or how should we ladder down. And then I can expand them to see what's specific. So again, at that portfolio level, I'm more interested in these details, so they're more readily available. I can also instantly add new work here. I don't have to go into Jira. So I can create it in Align and it'll be pushed down if that integration exists, keeping me in one spot. So I don't have to bounce between systems. As a planner, I can just stay in here and do all the work I need to. Now, these views are also configurable. You can change which columns show up. So there are a lot of options in terms of look and feel that we have. So just pointing that out. And we can also switch from a list view in a lot of these to something like a Kanban view or columns to give us more control or a different way to look at these. Let's see if it's set up here. There we go. So these are the same items of work, just represented in a Kanban board. So depending on how I want to visualize this, it's very easy for me to switch back and forth between a list and a Kanban. Just going down the left here, some other things to be aware of. We've mentioned OKRs, objectives and key results. There's also a hub for them where I can see them through this portfolio, and I can see the ones that we need to be focusing on. These are the ones that the team has decided are important. And here I can drill in a bit and see, I don't have any off track, but I can click and filter and just show the ones that are at risk or that are on track and good to go, giving me that another way to see how are we doing. Again, the whole point of Align is every level of the organization can fairly easily figure out, is what I am doing helping the group move towards our goal? Whether our goal is to, improve a financial system, whether our goal is to build a new AI tool, it doesn't matter what the goal is. Align gives us these levels, and at each level we can see how are we trending. I need to focus on these two OKRs to help support a broader goal, whatever that is. These can be expanded if there are key results within them. I'm kind of curious how many levels I have here. And here I can see that objective. Introduce users, centered solutions. Okay, great. And then I can see all the key results. Again, in my personal experience, key results tend to fail when the organization as a whole doesn't really buy into them. And the breakdown I tend to see is executives will have a great objective and great key results, and maybe the people under them don't do it. So this tool lets us see where those gaps are. And the general guidance is 3 to 5 key results per objective to help break it down. So the objective is you want to do, and the key result is how do you get there. This is going to show us what those all are, and also give us ways to track completion. How close are we to getting to that key result? Each key result can have different metrics. So if I add a new one quickly, I can do a percentage, a dollar amount, NPS or net promoter score. So depending on what I need to track, the tool gives me a lot of flexibility on the key result side to show progress towards that. It's also going to build a confidence score. Again, this is just a model that Align uses to figure out, how confident are we can nail this essentially. So here it's fairly confident. A 1 is yes, you're for sure going to get it. Underneath this, though, I've mentioned again aligning the work, connecting the work to the key results and the objectives. We can also tie in these specific epics, these specific things that my team is working on, connect directly to this objective. This transparency is important. In my experience, I tend to be working with the developers and they can't see how the thing they're working on relates to that big objective that our CEO spoke about. This is where we can see that very clearly. I can see there are 14 work items that are aligned to this. So then I know if I'm working on guided search, that directly connects to this objective. And that's important because of these reasons, or here are the key results we have to hit. It helps remove that opaque barrier we sometimes get between the people doing the work and the people strategizing over how do we complete something big. I can also see other information in here. Which programs does this impact? Just again, more information about the objective lives right here on the screen. And I think I have some more slides. I keep getting ahead of myself in the demo because I get excited about talking about things. Let me see if I have, okay, good. So that's the portfolio level. And again, it just focuses in on one portfolio's worth of work. It gets us more granular and it cuts out the mission, the vision, the values, because at our portfolio level, we want to focus on this group of work. And it might be a big group of work, but it's not everything. So Jira Align also has forecasting capability. Based on our team's capacity, what do we think we can do in 6 months, in 3 months, in 2 years? This for me as a project manager is really important. I want to be able to understand what is my team capable of, and that might be based on my velocity. How many story points on average have we been completing over the years? Or it might be based on uh, time estimates and actual hours worked. How many hours of work can my team do? Then Jira Align can help me figure out, hey, you're over capacity. You think you can do 500 hours of work, but you've committed to 1,000. So Jira Align can pull all that information in and help me understand where are these gaps. And that's really helpful for forecasting, but we can also dig in and then do our capacity. Now, the last bullet point here is important. Be honest and realistic. Um, I've worked with teams in the past that are overconfident, I believe would be the word, in what they can accomplish. And they end up taking on too much work. And I personally do this sometimes. I agree to do too many things. And just a reminder to folks, regardless of tool, to make sure you're honest with your team, with yourselves, and realistic based on what you understand. Not saying we can't have stretch goals, which we can support with Align. We can see, hey, we've got to do 5% more. But we want to be careful about that realism. Now, we can use things like averages. We can manually enter capacity as we go. So there's many ways we can use this tool to support the needs of our team. Spoke about OKRs in about 10, 15 minutes. So I want to get back into the live demo. This again is our portfolio screen. And here I'm seeing a forecast. And good, there's data. This is showing me over on the vertical, I've got my epics, and then the horizontal, I've got different information, and it's based by team. So it's telling me this epic, falls into this theme with this owner, and then it's giving me the estimates for the particular increment, or for the program, or just for the team. And then it's showing me here my AI team has done 402 out of 444 units of work. Great story points in this case. And what I'm looking for is red. My mobile team has negative capacity. So I would use this to figure out, based on our plan, based on what's on the Jira tickets and in Align, which items are sending them over. So this particular epic, they've committed to twice as much as they should be able to handle. So it's giving me a very, almost like a heat map, a very easy way to see where am I over capacity and where should I then dig in to understand why did that happen. So again, as we're going down those layers of focus. We started at the strategy, what's our mission? Now it's much more, hey, one of my teams is oversubscribed. I got to go help them out. And then I can see how that would connect to the broader vision. And I can have a great story to tell my team on why we can't accept all this work. We're oversubscribed. Forecasting works very closely with capacity. And I was debating which one to show first, because your capacity is what will help drive the forecast. And this one isn't too bad. We're only 108% subscribed. So the bar along the top is just giving me what's our forecast versus capacity. If it's all blue, that could be good. If there's red, that means somewhere I'm over. And then all the other numbers in here are giving me that information. How many teams are involved in this? How many people? I've got 152 folks over so many weeks. And then I get the actual plan. So this can be defaulted in. It can be a running average, but I can see things like how many members in weeks, and then it'll give me a buffer. So if we think of our agile work, we might give a buffer of 20% in any given increment, just in case someone's sick or just in case a bug pops up or something unexpected. So this is showing me what is the buffer and then what's our available capacity. So just doing the math to say out of 42 people with this type of capacity, how many story points can we do? And this is then fed back into my forecast. So this gives me a good ability to figure out what's going on with my teams. And then I can even come in and edit the buffers or change these values to kind of tinker with the plan. So it gives me a way to adjust my capacity. If we realize we actually need more buffer in this iteration or this increment, I can go in and add that. Or maybe we need less. Maybe we need to change the duration this team is available. I have the ability to control this to see how that fits into my broader plan. How do I connect that work, or how do I connect that team's availability back to the mission of the overall organization to see what's going on? There's one more level down. So I've got portfolio. Actually, there's several levels. If you see, I can dig down to individual teams in this. I'll just go down to the program level. So this might be, the lowest level that we usually think of in Align, because stuff under this, my epics and tasks and stories, I would probably be working on over in Jira. I would have my project manager in there, or if I'm taking on both roles, I would go into Jira to plan it because it's closer to the work. Here, though, we can see even different information than we got at the portfolio. At the top is one of those checklists I mentioned earlier, and I can still access those in the checklist box. But it's just reminding me, hey, here are the things that you should be doing at the program level for help. So it's right there in my face. And then on the right, I can see how is this program doing? How much time is left? Where are all the epics in terms of completion? So just more granular data. Whereas if I were the CIO, the chief information officer, I might not be needing to see this much detail. My program managers, though, really need it. They need to see where are we in a sprint and how many stories, had to roll over from last sprint or need adjusting. I also get dependencies at this layer, which is pretty neat. I can see which particular things are reliant on other work. This is another good aspect of Align for me because many times my development teams are doing their job and they can be unaware that the thing they're working on requires Michael's team for help. And so this can give me that visibility. I can see what's going on. Similar to other screens, I can expand and drill in what are in these epics. And we'll see I'm getting down to the story level here, whereas I might not have seen this at the portfolio or the strategy level. Again, it's such a small detail in comparison to the organization. It matters, but it's not important there. And so here I can see who specifically is working on this. What is the exact LOE level of effort? And then I can drop comments and chat with that person to figure out, hey, I need more information. So if I need to, I can reach down to that person and say, what's going on with this? On the left, I've got similar menus. I have two roadmap menus for some reason. I'm kind of curious what the new roadmap is. But I can see, again, just that program level. So really helping out the program manager, and again, giving them the ability to see how does this work ladder up and how does this work ladder down. Now, here is a visual roadmap. I don't know if I can take questions, but we've got about 8, 9, 10 minutes. If there's questions from the audience, please raise your hand. I'll pick on Michael because I know he's there. he might be able to put them in chat. Also, if there are questions, please let Michael know, and I'll be happy to answer them after this. I'm going kind of quick because there's a lot of stuff and I can't get to everything. So please keep in mind, I'll be happy to answer other questions if and when you have them. One area we haven't really touched on yet is reporting. Jira Align has the ability to feed data into other systems. So if you're using, I'll say, Tableau or EasyBI or other reporting tools, you don't have to rely on just what is in Align. You can connect it to other systems to pipe it out. It does, however, include a lot of reports. For example, I have a dependency map. I can see, for this team, what are we committed to and what's dependent on other work. But I might pull this up to the program level. And I can see, I've got some orange flags here saying I should look at these to figure out how are these dependencies impacting things. I also have dependency charts. I can see which teams are dependent on others or how many items are dependent across teams. And that same ability to go up to the program level to see, hey, at my program, how are these things interacting? And this is all scoped based on the planning intervals I've selected, and then also the layer I've picked in this dropdown. So I can change the program, or I could go up to portfolio and see similar information. The idea here, though, is I'm the program manager. I just want to see what I'm doing in the program, whatever that program is supporting. Where was another one, a good one in here? Status reports. Oh, there's my risk. Just another way to visualize your information, and again, just built right into Align. There is one more report I want to pull up before I'll start wrapping up. Risk reporting. We haven't spoken too much about risks, but Jira Align can help us track those as well. This uses what's called the ROAM framework, or is it resolved, owned, accepted, or mitigated? So it allows you to bucket your risks and keep an eye on those and then see where are they? How many are still open? How many might jump out of the woodwork and bite us? Or, what's the risk of them happening or their impact? This for me is something I have to track basically in a spreadsheet right now. So having this in the same tool, I am tracking my overall mission in or my OKRs or my program work is very useful because I can instantly see what are the risks we've identified for this program, who's responsible for them, and then a lot more information on what can happen. Which interval was this identified in? What's the relationship of this to the work? And then how are we going to handle it? Are we going to mitigate it, accept it, et cetera? So this is also right there in there. And I haven't mentioned this, but you can also do things like add attachments and other information to these objects that we see in Align. I think I have more slides. I knew I would run out of time, folks. I will be providing Michael with a copy of this slide deck for you. I have some final thoughts, though, before you move on to whatever's next in your agenda. Any tool we use is only as good as our team's data entry. In these examples that we've seen, Jira Align is mostly dependent on the data coming out of Jira. So if my team is not updating statuses, if they are not properly estimating, if they are not adjusting Jira on a regular basis, whatever I plan against will be misaligned with reality. And that's where, when we think back to the start of this, we can't just go buy Align on our own and start using it. There's all that training and configuration and setup. But even before that, we need to be understanding, how does our overall team work? What agile methodology or framework will we use? And then have we used that for several months or increments before we start using Align? And that's an ongoing process, making sure our teams understand the need to input their time. It takes a few minutes because that allows us as the program managers, as the executives, as the portfolio managers to plan out and support them. And then we need to understand our needs and process. Jira Align is a tool like any other tool, and there are many ways to do what it does. I've mentioned Jira can do some of these things. So depending on the needs of your organization and your teams, Jira Align might be a great tool, or it might be something you look at and go, that doesn't quite fit our needs. And that's where it's important for us as leaders, as administrators, as experts with our organization to sit down and truly understand, what do we need to do? So then we can go get the appropriate tools. And please explore other options. Again, this is one tool. this might be the best tool for you, or there might be a better one out there. But I really hope this gave you a good starting point, a good basic understanding of what Jira Align is capable of doing, so you can go explore more. So in terms of next steps, this QR code will take you to Atlassian's Jira Align page, so the official documentation. I will also send this to Michael so he has it and can share it. But this would be where to go for the official stuff. But talk to your organization, talk to other people you work with, talk to other people in there with the room right now around what you understand about the tool, and start asking questions. I'm available. My email's right here. You can also get at me through Michael. But please keep engaging with these tools. There's a lot of great ones out there. And for me, the biggest gap is usually we don't know what they can do, so we don't go out and use them. Ooh, okay. I'm mostly done talking. I could keep going, but I really appreciate getting an hour to sit down with you all virtually and just talk about some of this stuff. Thank you.
So we can take one or two questions from the audience from Jira Align. No question? Yeah, so I can actually open the stage, Robert. So one of the key things is that this tool is quite really good, especially when it comes to management and ensuring that everyone is aligned. But does it require extra hands? Because management is always worried, do we need 3 more people to really manage this process? Or can the existing team really be trained? Case in point where team leads can actually take initiative to really help the management track some of these strategies in their team.
Yeah, so it sounds like the question is, if we use Jira Align, do we have to have a team of 5 people who only do Jira Align, right? I have heard of groups that go that route, but typically what I've seen is like what you're describing. And it's more about identifying individuals who want to go do it, and then supporting them in doing it. So there would be some training, like you saw new screens, you would have to understand how the tool works. I can't see any reason though you couldn't take, a project manager and say, great, you're going to start using Align. It's just a new tool. It's a new system. But once you learn the mechanics, like the buttons to push and why, I don't see any reason someone couldn't step up and expand their skills and then reduce the need to bring in someone else just to manage it. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
So strategy is owned by the executives. So would we expect the executives to be inputting data as well? Because the project management is just at the project management level, yeah?
Yes. Sorry, I'm laughing because anytime I tell an executive they have to go into a system, their eyes kind of glaze over and I lose them. You can have executives come in here and input data. What I typically recommend, don't do that unless they want to. Let the executives focus on what they would like to do and have that project manager handle managing the system. However, you should also give the executives enough guidance and support on how to go in and find things. My goal with systems is to make sure that if someone needs information from it, they can just go get it. So I wouldn't put the expectation on the executives to go in and set all this up, but I would make sure they have a link to the one dashboard they find useful, or they know who to go talk to say, hey, John, I need to see this. How do I get it? But kind of like that prior question, I would identify people, those project managers who want to elevate their skill or get involved in this, and tap them to go use the tool because they'll understand the data, but also get the tool, and then keep the executive out of it so they can just view it and get what they need.
Hi, Robert. You've spoken on Jira Align being a tool that's supposed to align strategies from the top level. I was thinking, how do two teams, say finance and the IT department, these two teams have conflicting strategies, but they need to be aligned to the same executive or enterprise strategy. But the two teams themselves, they have conflicting strategies, say on a particular or on the same pattern or on the same objective. Their objectives are not aligning, but from the organizational point of view, they should. I mean, how does Jira Align sort this form of a conflict? How does it help as a tool to merge these conflicting teams to form one enterprise strategy?
And I love the question, and I was chuckling because the word align is at the system, or like, are we lined up? That's a very common challenge, and that is where I see many groups struggle. You'll have IT decide their objectives and everything, and engineering, just examples like you're saying. For me, that's where the top-down nature of this type of planning is important. And it's really a lot of discussion then between the heads of those two departments and then whoever they connect to. So it's more about the leadership of those teams sitting down and discussing, okay, we understand the vision. We want to build a better product, provide better banking service, expand our network. We just disagree on how we should both get there. For me, that cannot be solved within the team. So IT, is focused on IT. They will have to take a step back, sit down with the engineering lead and someone else who understands the vision to figure out, how do we change our objectives? And that's for me where a lot of failure occurs. Either groups try and solve it within their own teams. And I've been trapped on a team like that. We made up our own objectives and we weren't getting support. We weren't getting resources. And finally, we gave up. They either don't recognize the need for that, or they butt heads and they can't find a way to adjust the plans, or they can't find a way to collaborate a step forward. Align can help expose those differences, because if each department is putting in their objectives, someone goes and looks at it and sees, oh, IT thinks this is what they should do, and engineering thinks this is what they should do. Those things don't match up. And that's where the tool will collect the data, but it's up to us as humans to sit down and figure out, wait a minute, they're doing differing things. We need to sit down and chat. So it's a good example in my mind of having to get out of the system and sit down in a room with 2 or 3 people and just have an honest discussion over, how do we best support the broader needs? Yeah, but great question and a very common challenge.
Thank you so much, Robert. Give a lot of applause to Robert once more. Yeah, Robert is a bit modest, but he's a well-accomplished speaker and also a champion. He's certified, I don't know how many now certifications, and also he has a couple of Udemy courses around some of these tools. So check him out at Robert in Tech. And every other week, he has a YouTube live on different topics. So you'll be seeing a bit of Robert presentation in this community in the main part of the year. Don't miss out. And thank you so much, Robert, for making time, and really appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. Yeah.
I'm gonna stop these and then start re-recording so that they are like 2 parts. So in case you wanna join, feel free. I think there's a comment, no? Okay. Anna, do you have any question before we check out? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. If you want to join the second part, feel free. It's just that I'm stopping the recording and then starting again.